I thought I knew my husband. I thought I knew everything about him. We had been married for years, and to me, he was my whole world. He was loving, caring, always there when I needed him. Or at least, that's what I believed. We built a life together, shared a home, shared memories, shared dreams. There was nothing that ever made me question him. Nothing that made me doubt our marriage. He would travel sometimes, but he always had an explanation. Work, he would say. And I trusted him, because that's what a wife does. She trusts, she believes, she loves without questioning. Looking back now, there were signs, small things that didn't make sense. Phone calls he would take in private, moments he seemed distant, times he would disappear emotionally, even when he was right next to me. But I ignored it. I told myself, no marriage is perfect. I chose peace. I chose to believe in him. Until one day, everything changed. It was a normal day, nothing unusual, nothing that could prepare me for what was about to happen. Then I got the call that changed my life forever. My husband was gone, just like that. No warning, no goodbye, no explanation. I felt like my world had collapsed. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't understand how life could change so fast. But the pain of losing him was only the beginning, because what I discovered next was something I never saw coming, and it broke me in a way I can't even explain. The call I received that day still echoes in my mind. There's been an accident. My heart dropped instantly, before I could even ask questions. The voice on the other end said it. He didn't make it. I froze. Right there. Everything around me went silent. My husband had died on the spot. No goodbye, no last words. Just like that, he was gone. I don't even remember how I got to the hospital. All I remember was seeing his body, lifeless, still. And in that moment, my world shattered. The days that followed were a blur. Pain, tears, people coming in and out of the house, preparing for the burial. I was broken, trying to understand how life could change so fast. Then the day of the burial came. I was sitting there, numb, empty, when suddenly, a woman walked in. Confident, calm, holding a child's hand. At first, I didn't think much of it. People were coming from everywhere. But something about her didn't feel normal. The way she looked at me, it wasn't sympathy. It wasn't respect. It was something deeper, something unsettling. Then she walked closer and said quietly, "I need to talk to you." My heart started racing. We stepped aside, away from everyone. And that's when she said it. "I'm his wife." I stared at her, confused, shocked, unable to understand what she meant. But she didn't hesitate. She looked straight at me and said, "I'm his wife, and this is our child." My knees felt weak. I could barely stand. My mind was spinning. This had to be a mistake. It had to be. But then she started explaining another home, another life, another family. The late nights, the trips, the secret calls. Everything suddenly made sense. But instead of answers, all I felt was pain. The man I loved, the man I trusted with my whole life, had been living a double life, and I had no idea. I wasn't the only wife. I was just one of them. And in that moment, losing him was no longer the only pain. The truth hurt even more, because the man I was mourning was never truly mine. After she told me the truth, I couldn't think straight. My head was spinning. My heart was breaking all over again. But there was no time to process anything. Because we were at his burial, and everything was about to get worse. Words started spreading, quiet whispers at first, then louder. "Did you hear? He had another wife." People started looking at me differently, some with pity, some with shock, some even with curiosity. I felt exposed, embarrassed, like my entire life had just been turned into a story for people to talk about. Then suddenly, his family got involved. Voices started rising, arguments breaking out. The other woman stood her ground, calm, confident, like she had nothing to hide. "I am his legal wife," she said. Those words hit me like a slap. Legal wife? What did that make me? My chest tightened. I could barely breathe. Documents were brought out. Proof, marriage certificate, pictures, everything. Right there, in front of everyone. The truth was no longer a secret. It was public, and it was humiliating. I stood there, feeling small, broken, confused. Everything I thought I had, everything I believed in, was falling apart in front of my eyes. Then his family turned to me. Their eyes no longer soft. Their voices no longer kind. "Did you know?" they asked. I shook my head slowly, tears running down my face. Because the truth was, I knew nothing. Nothing at all. In that moment, I realized something painful. I wasn't just betrayed by him. I was alone. Completely alone. The man I trusted with my life had left me with nothing but questions, and a truth I wasn't ready to face. And as I stood there, watching everything unfold, one thing became clear. The man I thought I knew never really existed. After the burial, after the whispers, after the truth came out, life didn't go back to normal. Because there was no normal left, I went home to a house that felt unfamiliar, a place filled with memories that suddenly didn't make sense anymore. Every corner reminded me of him. But now, those memories felt different. Heavy, confusing, painful. I kept asking myself the same questions, over and over again. Who was he really? Which life was real? Did he ever truly love me? But no matter how much I thought about it, no matter how many times I replayed everything in my mind, I found nothing. No answers, just silence. Days turned into weeks, and slowly people stopped talking about it. They moved on. But I didn't, because I was the one left behind, with the truth and the questions. At first I was angry. Angry at him. Angry at myself. Angry at the lies. But with time, that anger turned into something else. Acceptance. Not because I understood what happened, but because I realized I might never understand. And that was the hardest part. Learning to live without closure. Learning to accept that some questions will never be answered. But in the middle of all that pain, I found something unexpected. Strength. The kind of strength that comes when you have no choice but to move forward. I started rebuilding my life. Not because I had all the answers, but because I deserved peace. And slowly, very slowly, I started letting go, not of what happened, but of the need to understand it. Because the truth is, some people leave without explaining themselves. Some stories end without clarity, and some wounds don't come from what we lost, but from what we never got to understand. He left without answers, and I was left to carry the questions alone. Till today. But even with that, I chose to live. I chose to heal. And most importantly, I chose myself.